Hey, Michael Smith here with the Bluefield Group, and today I'm excited to be sitting with Griffin Bell with Bell, Carrington, Price & Gregg, one of our go-to real estate attorneys. And today we're going to be talking about some next steps, some important things to take care of after closing. All right, so Griffin, a lot of people think that once you sign the papers and you get the keys that you're done, right? But we both know that there's some really important next steps to take after closing. Okay, so what do you typically recommend is a good next step?
The first step after the closing should always be to get your driver's license switched over to show the new property address. So that's step one. In addition to that, when you're getting your driver's license changed, go ahead and get your vehicle registration switched over as well. Those two documents are very important for the topic that we're discussing today, which is property taxes.
Exactly.
In South Carolina, there are two property tax rates. There's a 6% property tax rate and a 4% property tax rate. The 6% property tax rate, which is also the default rate in South Carolina and in turn Greenville County, is for non-owner occupied properties. So your rentals, your second homes,
right,
that kind of thing. The important thing to consider though is that if you live in the property as your primary residence, if you're buying it as your house that you're going to live in, you are entitled to pay the 4% rate. The thing about the 4% rate though is that you have to apply for it. In other words, when we do the closing, I record the deed in Greenville County in the Register of Deeds office. Then they will in turn get with the county tax assessor's office, and they will set you at the 6% rate. Every deed that I record and every deed that gets recorded in Greenville County goes in at the 6% rate.
By default?
By default.
Okay.
You have to apply for the 4% rate. Now, that's a very important thing that you need to do after closing, because we're talking about a whole lot of money here. In some cases, we're talking about somewhere between 2 and 3 times the amount.
I think it can be tricky, right? Because you hear 4% and 6%.
Yeah, doesn't sound like a whole lot.
You think 6% would be about 50% more,
yeah, that's
right?
It's
But
not.
the way that the numbers shake out, that 6% rate is, like you said, 2, sometimes even 3 times as expensive as the 4% rate.
That's correct. To give you a real world example, if you buy a house for, let's say, $400,000, the 6% rate on that house will be approximately $9,000 a year. So that's a lot of money to have to pay. However, if you live in that property as your primary residence, you're looking at about $2,800.
Wow.
That's a
so
big difference.
It's literally more than 3 times as expensive.
That's why it's so important. Now, so we do the closing, we record the deed, and then when you move into your house, you will get a notice in the mail from Greenville County within about 2 weeks. And it's a very important notice. I want everybody to see it. I've got one with me because it kind of looks like junk mail. And you will get some junk mail after the closing, as you know.
Get a lot of junk mail.
especially if you get a loan. So This is one to be on the lookout for. And I'll show it to you. This is it. This is what it looks like when it hits your mailbox. I show people because it kind of looks like junk mail. It's got the perforated edges. It's computer generated. So some people may overlook it, but be on the lookout for it. And this is the actual application that you will need to fill out in order to receive the 4%. So you get the mail, you're on the lookout for it, you got it, and then, so this is the same document. So then when you open it up, you can see that it is the application, the 4% special assessment application. It's a pretty basic form to fill out, but again, like we talked about in the beginning of the video, you have to get your driver's license changed and your vehicle registration changed over, because this document requires that you turn it back in, and as you can see here in bold, you have to turn it back in with a copy of your new license and your new vehicle registration in order to get the 4%.
Right.
So that's the county's proof. Those two items, that's the county's proof that you live there as your primary residence.
What are some things in particular that we need to be looking out for?
Number one, if you have a loan, be on the lookout for documents from companies that are purporting to be your lender, but actually aren't. So you're going to get a lot of junk mail like sign up for this credit, life, and disability insurance product, that type of thing. Those typically are not from your actual lender,
Right.
which is kind of scary but true. The other most prevalent form of junk mail that you will receive after closing to be on the lookout for is what's called a recorded deed notice. I've got this here. It looks rather official. Be on the lookout for it. This will come in the mail to you shortly after you close, and it will ask you to pay money for a certified copy of your deed or a recorded copy of your deed. And there's no need to do that because you're going to get the original recorded deed back in the mail.
Right, and it's in public records anyway.
It's a public record, and so what exactly? So what these guys are doing is they're just printing a copy of your deed off the internet and charging $86.
You're right. So be on the lookout for this. So how important is it to do that before the tax bills come out at the end of the year?
It is, I recommend doing that before the tax bills. By the way, tax bills usually typically come out sometime in October or early November in Greenville County. Each county is different. I recommend you getting this process done before those bills come out. However, you have really until the last day of the year to apply for the 4%.
Okay. Now what happens if you're entitled to the 4%, you forget to do it, they tax you at 6%, right?
Well, there's good news and bad news. The bad news is you're going to get your tax bill and you're going to have a heart attack when you get your tax bill because it's going to be, like we talked about, somewhere between 2 and 3 times the normal amount. The good news is that in South Carolina law, that you can apply for the 4%. If you miss it in the first year, you can apply the second year, and Greenville County and other counties around the state will retroactively give you
So they'll
4%.
refund.
They'll refund it up to 2 years.
Okay. However, that tax bill doesn't just go to you, it goes to your mortgage company if they escrow taxes and insurance, right? So the escrow company, whoever services your loan, when they receive that tax bill at 6%, they're not going to ask any questions. They're just going to pay it out of your escrows, and odds are you're going to have a shortage. So that means they're going to bump up your payment for the next year, right?
Yeah, it creates an issue if you have a mortgage. Like Michael said, the bank will just pay it, and then they'll charge you by either alerting you that there's a shortage in the escrow account and you have to pay that back with a lump sum, or they will change your payments and increase your payments to make up for the shortfall. Also, that becomes a problem in terms of getting the refund. So if that happens and then you have to go in the next year, you apply for the 4%, you're entitled to the refund up to 2 years.
Right.
But Greenville County may send that to your lender, they may send that to you. It can cause a mess of things.
Some confusion.
Absolutely.
So in addition to getting your property tax rate dropped from 6% down to 4%, are there any other types of discounts on property taxes we need to be aware of?
Yes, South Carolina offers other discounts. One is what we call in South Carolina is the Homestead Exemption.
Okay.
The Homestead Exemption are for persons who are 65 and older and who live in the property as their primary residence.
Right.
Only one person, if it's a married couple, only one person has to be 65.
Okay.
The key there is that you have to be a South Carolina resident for 1 year before you're entitled to the homestead credit.
Got it.
So in other words, if you purchase a house, say in 2018, and you're from out of state, you would have to live in South Carolina for 1 year before you can receive the credit. In other words, you would apply for the credit in 2018 and receive it in 2019.
Okay.
The
so
other thing
you
about
can get the 4% immediately.
You can get
Right.
4% immediately.
But
Yep.
you have to wait till the following year to get the additional discount.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And the homestead credit is a good credit. It's another 25 to 30% off of your tax bill. So it's
That's
a
great.
significant discount.
That's great. Okay.
There are a few other credits that you're entitled to in South Carolina. The main one being for disabled veterans.
Okay.
Disabled veterans in South Carolina don't pay any property taxes.
Wow. Is there any other caveats, like they have to live in the home for a year or anything like that?
No, as long as they can prove, and there's a form that the VA will give to them to turn into the county.
Right.
But as long as they can prove the fact that they are a disabled veteran, then they are exempt from paying property taxes.
And it is only
Support.
for primary residents, right?
Only for primary residents.
Got it.
Yes,
So if a disabled vet buys an investment property, they're still going to pay that 6%.
that's correct.
Got it. All right, well, Griffin, thank you so much for your time. I think this has been incredibly valuable. This is something that everyone needs to be aware of, and you need to take advantage of quickly. You definitely don't want to wait around to get this done and risk paying higher property taxes. So if you guys have any questions about this, any of the property tax discounts, or anything else related to real estate or real estate law, we'd love to help you out. Please reach out to us at the number or email below. We'll get you connected with Griffin. We'll answer any questions you have. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next one.